Hi friends, my name is Kayla Rain, and today I'm doing my wrap up for the month of April, where I read a total of 10 or 11 things. Now I can't remember, and I need to consult the Goodreads app. It was 11 things. So in the month of April, I was able to get back into reading. Thankfully, after everything that happened in March, I had a little more time on my hands compared to the previous month, and I read quite a few things. I'm very happy to report that almost everything was an amazing book for me. So I'm going to jump right in, starting with Fire by Kristin Cashore. This is the sequel in a companion trilogy. The first book is Graceling. This isn't really going to provide any major spoilers, I think, but I'll still kind of keep it vague just in case anyone really wants to go into this series without knowing a lot. But this follows a main character who is a hybrid. She is part human and part monster, and she has some special powers that are very much wanted by some evil men, typical of the world. And she just kind of has to go on this quest to figure out what's going on and try to help this kingdom find out if there's going to be a military coup or someone's going to try to take over the kingdom. It's just a lot of political intrigue, a lot of creepy, crawly moments, because this world is inhabited by monsters as well as monstrous humans, and I really enjoyed that element to this book. I thought that this was a clear winner over Graceling, which I just felt kind of meh about. I think this book was really fun. I really liked where the storyline went, and the characters were definitely memorable for me. Overall, I gave this a 4 out of 5 stars. The next book that I read was Blood, Water, Paint by Joy McCullough. This is a book written primarily in verse, though there are a few chapters that aren't in verse, and it follows a main character in the 1600s in Italy. She is the daughter of a painter, and he always writes off her work as his. And somewhere along the book she meets a man who promises to give her freedom and to uplift her, and then he ends up raping her. And this book kind of follows that storyline of her taking him to trial, as well as past storylines from historical figures and how they dealt with that situation. And that pulls into where she draws her inspiration for her art, and also her inspiration for taking her rapist to trial in a time where women typically weren't believed and were more punished than men were in these circumstances. This book was so beautiful. It tackled rape culture in such an amazing way. I think it really hit the nail on the head, and the way that the author wrote this, I thought it had the best impact that this book could have had. And I adored this, and this is definitely a contender for one of my favorite books of 2018. It is so gorgeous, so meaningful, and just I'm still thinking about it. The next book that I have is Little and Lion by Brandy Colbert. This is a YA contemporary that follows a main character named Suzette, though her brother calls her Little and he is Lion, aka Little and Lion. This book was really great. I loved it so much. It follows a main character who is trying to find the best identity for herself, which she's pretty sure she's bisexual, but she's playing around with that identity to see if it fits. Her brother has been diagnosed with bipolar disorder, so there's some mental health representation, and this is a non-traditional family with Little and her mom living separately from Lion and his dad, but Little and Lion's mom are actually dating, and they are step-siblings. I really enjoyed that element to this book. I think that it was so nice to see that family dynamic there and see how that worked, because not every family fits into the mom, dad, and 2 kids kind of frame of mind where everyone lives in the same house and has a dog and everything's perfection. But this was still perfection, just in a different way, and I really loved that. The only thing I didn't enjoy about this book is there is a slight cheating storyline, and that just kind of sucks because I feel like bisexual people already get a bad reputation for that, and it kind of sucked to see that representation in this book. But other than that, this book was really amazing. I loved it so much, and I ended up giving it a 4 out of 5 stars. The next book that I have, I was actually sent for review, and that is The Summer of Broken Things by Margaret, Peterson, Haddix, and unfortunately this was not a great book for me personally. This is a YA contemporary that follows two main characters, so it is a dual perspective book. They're both in Spain on a summer vacation. One of them comes from an upper class family and the other one comes from a lower class family. And I just found a few things problematic with this book, and I'm going to try to write up a Goodreads review because there are a few too many things to really mention in a wrap-up video. So if I do end up writing that Goodreads review, I will link it in the down bar below if you're curious about my issues with this. But to sum it up, the fat representation I did not think was very well done. I did not enjoy the poverty representation, and I really didn't enjoy some of the microaggressions in this book. It just seemed like there were a few comments here and there that just didn't sit right with me, whether it was about race or income, and those things just kind of left a bad taste in my mouth. I think that this book could have had a lot of great potential. I love a European road trip, summer trip, boarding school, anything that's kind of like my Achilles heel of YA literature. You tell me a book is set in Europe and there's like love and friendship and like food and background and atmosphere, I'm there. I am so there. But this book just did not get the job done for me. I don't think I rated this because I haven't reviewed it yet, and I feel guilty giving anything a low rating without actually giving a reason as to why I didn't really enjoy it. So I'm very bummed out. I'm sorry, guys. The next book I read was You Bring the Distant Near by Mitali Perkins. This is a generational story, which I really enjoyed, and it follows multiple characters all within the same family, but it primarily focuses on two sisters who are the daughters of parents who immigrated to the United States in the 70s, I believe. So it's got some historical fiction elements to it, but more recent history, which is really cool because when I think of historical fiction, I think like anything that happened before the 1900s. But this book is obviously still in that category of historical fiction. It's just something that I don't see very often. I really enjoyed how this book followed the different family storylines and how they all linked together. I thought that the discussion around immigration and that feeling of belonging was just really beautifully done, and it just had me feeling a lot of things for these characters, and I loved it so much. I ended up giving this a 4 out of 5 stars. Next, I picked up the new Jim Crow, Mass Incarceration in the Age of Color Blindness by Michelle Alexander. Obviously, I thought a lot of things about this book. Thankfully, they were all really good things because there were some really amazing points made in this book with information to back it up, and I thought that this was not necessarily eye-opening because I felt like I knew a lot of the stuff already thanks to a lot of really great advocates online who have been talking about things that are mentioned in this book, but this book just gave me more perspective and the information backing up those claims, which is always great because now when awful racist people try to tell me that I'm just making things up, I'm just going to throw this book at their face and tell them to read it because the facts are here. I ended up giving this a 5 out of 5 stars, and honestly I highly recommend everyone pick this up because it was so informational, but it was also written in a way that it was easy to get through. It wasn't necessarily enjoyable because the subject material is actually really awful and horrible to read about, but it was written in a way that I think it's very easy for people to consume. Next, I read Far From the Tree by Robin Benway. This is a YA contemporary that follows 3 main characters who are biological siblings but have been adopted or are in the foster care system. This book kind of starts off with one of the main characters having a baby and giving her child up for adoption, and that kind of just springs her forward to wanting to meet her biological siblings and to find her biological mom, and the book just kind of sets off from there. I really enjoyed this. I didn't find it as emotional as everyone else said I would. I think one of the only times that I really felt very strongly emotional is when one of the main characters, Grace, was being belittled for being pregnant and for having been a teen mom. That honestly just like really woke up like an anger in me that I didn't even know was possible in a book. But other than that, this book wasn't emotional as everyone said it was going to be. I didn't cry, but I did really enjoy it. I think that it was really great storytelling. I liked the family relationships. I liked that it, again, wasn't representing that kind of traditional family that we think of when we think of families. I enjoyed that it looked at different types of families and how families can really be any collection of people under one household or different households, and how it's not necessarily always just blood that binds you or legal documents that bind you. So this book was really nice, and I ended up giving it a 4 out of 5 stars. Next, I picked up What You Were Getting Wrong About Appalachia by Elizabeth Catte. This is basically a rebuttal to Hillbilly Elegy, which I'm not going to read. For anyone who doesn't know, I do live in the Appalachian Mountains, and yes, it's pronounced Appalachian. And I live in a rural area. And I think that this book did a really great job of rebutting some of the things that are mentioned in Hillbilly Elegy. Again, this is a book that backed those claims up with facts, which is really nice. It wasn't just opinion based, and there's actually information and like a well of information about Appalachia in here. I really enjoyed that the author pointed out that Hillbilly Elegy kind of makes Appalachia seem like this white area that is just very conservative and backwards and almost archaic, and this book points out how that isn't true, and how a lot of the things that happen in Appalachia are a product of the way that politicians have created this atmosphere of oppression for a lot of different people, and this book highlights that really well. I enjoyed this, and I ended up giving it a 4 out of 5 stars. And if you have read Hillbilly Elegy, I highly recommend you pick this up. As a lifelong Appalachian resident, this is gold. Hillbilly Elegy is racist trash, in my opinion. The next book that I picked up was Love and Gelato by Jenna Evans Welch. I always say Jenna, and I don't know why. I picked this book up because I already had Love and Luck pre-ordered, even though I hadn't read this yet. It's just, it's my Achilles heel, that European summer vacation, and like love and friendship and family and all that stuff was just, yes. I love that. So this is a YA contemporary that follows a main character who recently has moved to Italy because her mother has passed away, and she just found out that her dad lives in Italy, so she goes to live with him. And when she gets there, she acquires her mom's diary from when her mother lived in Italy for about a year. And the story just kind of sets off from there. And this was genuinely a fun book. I enjoyed it. There were a few problematic comments here and there, which again, if I get around to writing a review, I will leave linked in the down bar below if you're curious about those, but this video is more of just to talk about lightly how I felt about a book, but not really go in depth, so I don't want to go over every single sentence and pick it apart. But my main issue with this book is I can't suspend my disbelief that the main character wouldn't have sat down and read the entire diary in one sitting, as opposed to just reading a few pieces every day and then trying to piece that together within the storyline, and then finally coming to the end of the diary and knowing what truly happened. I don't know, I feel like if I had a diary in front of me from my deceased mother, I would just read the whole thing. I wouldn't just be like, well, I'm just gonna read this today, and then I'll just be you know, solving a mystery that's answered at the end of the diary. So that was really my main issue with the book, because I couldn't quite suspend that disbelief, but overall this was just a really fun book, so I still ended up giving it a 3 out of 5 stars, and I'm still looking forward to Love and Luck. And one of my most anticipated reads of the year happened in April, and that was Leah on the Offbeat by Becky Albertalli. First of all, congratulations to Becky Albertalli for hitting the New York Times bestseller list at #1. This book is so deserving of this. This is a YA contemporary that is a sequel to Simon versus the Homo sapiens agenda, and it follows the main character, Leah Burke, and she starts to get a crush on a girl who she really shouldn't have a crush on, and the story just kind of takes off from there. And it's just wonderful. I loved it so much. I liked that it showed Becky Albertalli has such a range for writing different voices and characters, because Simon and The Upside of Unrequited were both kind of fluffy, and the characters were a little nerdy and soft. and just really wonderful and sometimes unsure of themselves, but in like a cute, quirky way. And then you have Leah Burke, who is just a pessimist, and she's kind of moody and has a big attitude, and it's just amazing to see that type of range for Becky Albertalli to kind of step out of those characters that were so cutesy and have a book that just felt a little more Slytherin, if you will. And I really loved that so much. I ended up giving this a 5 out of 5 stars. I recommend both the print version and the audiobook because I switched between the two. The audiobook is narrated by Shannon Purser, who was Barb on Stranger Things. Hashtag justice for Barb. And lastly, I read Crooked Kingdom by Leigh Bardugo. I am aware that this is a copy of Six of Crows, but I recently lent out my copy of Crooked Kingdom to a coworker who wanted to read it because I got him to read this book and now he wants to know what happens. So I'm holding this up today because I don't have the other one. But I absolutely adored this conclusion. It was so good. I think that Leigh Bardugo does something really amazing with making the stakes so high that you just don't believe that the characters are going to be able to get through it. And then she finds a way to twist that and then just make it even more confusing but wonderful, and you never really know where something's going, and then it happens and you're just shocked. And I adore that. So that's all I really want to say about Crooked Kingdom because I don't want to spoil anything because it is a conclusion to Six of Crows. But I will say I gave it 5 out of 5 stars, and now I am so ready for King of Scars. Alright friends, that has been it for today's video. I read so many amazing books in April, and I hope y'all had a really great reading month too. Please talk to me in the comments and tell me what the best book you read in April was. I think my favorite is a tie between Bloodwater and Paint and Leah on the Offbeat, but I can't decide which one I liked more. So they're going to hold an equal place in my heart. I will leave links in the down bar below for my other social media sites such as Goodreads, Instagram, and Twitter, and hopefully by the time this video uploads, I will have written some reviews for those books that I wasn't absolutely wild about, so you can find out some more detailed information on that. As always, thank you so much for watching. Stay weird.